Multi-line text, or M-text, can produce notes, callouts, descriptions, or most any other form of annotation. Just type M-text on the command line to start the command. You can also type in MT, and if you type in text, you get single line text. So don't type that one in. That's something that happens sometimes, so just be careful. You can also go up to the Annotate tab on the ribbon, to the text panel, and click on the multi-line text command. And there you go. You'll see that little ABC prompt, and that will tell you where your text is going to go, and it will look like your style that you have current. So if I were to type in ABC, that's what it's going to look like. When entering text, you specify opposite corners of a text bounding box. That defines the width of the paragraphs in the multi-line text object. The length of the multi-line text objects depends on the amount of text, not the length of the bounding box. So you can use grips to edit that later. So let me show you here. I'll click something, and this is the area in which it's going to work. If you run out of room, it'll just keep going down the screen. That's okay, but it will be constrained to use this width. If a word can't fit in there, it'll wrap it down to below. So let me demonstrate. Now, when you're finished writing in your text, you can just click somewhere outside of that window, and there you go. So that's text. It works just like, or extremely close to, a word processing software program. Most of the characteristics of multi-line text are controlled by the text style, which sets the default font and some other options, such as line spacing, justification, etc. You can use the current text style, or you can select a new one right here in the ribbon. This file only has these two, but of course you can always make a new one by clicking here or typing in style. Within the multi-line text object, you can override the current text style. So if I double click it, I can make changes here. So if I click with my left mouse button, hold, and then drag it across to highlight the text, I can come right up here and I can change some things. I can make it bold, italicized, underline, overline, strike through. I can make it all lowercase. I can make it all uppercase. And I can change the font right here. Let's go to something very different. I can even change the color of it right here as well. So that's pretty cool. You can do a lot of things right there, and you can't do these types of things to this degree with single line text. Now, I recommend that you try not to do this type of thing, because what happens now is once you put in those overrides, you can't use a match properties to fix the text or to change the style. It just holds on to it. So be careful with that. If you need your text to look different, create another style that fits your display settings that you want to use, and then apply that style to that bit of text. Now, you can make multiple multi-line text objects, and you can have a header or a title type of a style, and then a regular notes type of a style. I suggest doing that. But sometimes it's not really practical, and it doesn't really matter if you're going to have to, match styles or not. Try to refrain from that if possible. When you select the text object and you look at the properties palette, you can change a lot of the different properties of that object. Of course, you have your general settings again, your color, your layer. So we can change the color here to green, the layer, the line type, etc. There are also other options in the properties palette that are unique to multi-line text. You have the style that you can change. You can edit the contents right here. If you click on the ellipsis, it will open up the text object itself, allowing you to edit it right here. If you see all this code right here, the /FBEL-MT, that's the font. You can set up the font and everything right in here if you'd like, but that's doing it the hard way. You can change the justification. And with multi-line text, you can really see how the justification is affected. On a single line text, it's not as noticeable. But as I move over each of these, I get a little preview of what's going to show up and how it's going to look. I can change the text height. I can match the orientation to another object. I can rotate it. I can change the line spacing distance, etc. Now, the background mask is pretty cool. Right now it's set to no. If I click on the ellipsis, it gives me different options. I can click here to use background mask. Now I can use the background color, meaning when I print this out, it will put a white box behind the text, or match the paper size. In other words, it will not print in that area except for the text. And that way, if there's line work beneath or underneath or behind the text, that line work won't show up, making your text much more visible. Now I can use a drawing background color, or I can pick any color that you want to use. Now here you have to set that border. Now right now it's set to 0. And this is going to specify sort of a scaled version of where that border is going to go. If I type in 1, then it will fill up 100%, or a scale of 1 to 1 of my text area. Let me click OK. So you can see I have a magenta background to my text, and it fills up 1. If I select the text again and go back to that, click the ellipsis, and if I change this to, let's say, 2, it'll now go out 2 units past. So it gets kind of tricky on exactly how that works, but if you want to fill up just the text, you set it to 1. If you want it to go a little bit past, it needs to be higher than 1, and that will be measured in units. Now, as I edit this text, and if I put my rotation back to 0, that will help us see it a little better. My box fills even more. And so it will keep matching it. And that allows you to create a lot of different types of highlighted notes. Now, if you're printing in color, that will print out a magenta color behind your text. If you're just printing in black and white, it will be some shade of gray or whatever line thickness that your magenta color is set to. When you double click on the text, you have some text editing abilities, and we've looked at most of them. And a lot of the things that you have here are available in the properties palette. Your line spacing, your justification, all of your colors, bold, etc. You can insert some symbols here, degrees, plus, minus, and a lot of others. You can set up columns. Now, the columns are pretty cool. So there you go. If you have a lot of notes, you can have just one object and you can put them in multiple columns. Double click that and you edit it by pulling this arrow down or up. And you can change the width of your columns right here just by clicking and holding it. And eventually it gets wide enough where it can hold everything. And this will change their separation. And that's controlled here. I put it on the dynamic columns and a manual height. That means I can manually, or will have to manually, adjust their height and width. Now if I go to auto height, that means as I type, it will automatically fill in the area for me. And that you have to define. Or I can say no, and it will put it all into one column. You can also create static columns. Say, hey, I want it to be in 5 columns, and then just work it out however it needs to be. But if you don't have enough text, then you're going to have an empty space. So there's a lot that you can do with multi-line text. There are a lot of different settings that can help you with your notes. It's very powerful. It's very word processor-like. So if you've used the word processor for a lot of different things, you'll be able to use multi-line text. And if there's something you want to do, just think about, well, how would I do it in a word processor, and you're probably going to be able to do it the exact same way right here in AutoCAD.